Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Ron Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we are going to be continuing What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange? Naruto Mystic Adventures, Shippuden, Part 2. As always, if you're a fan of the channel and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcasting that has to come out now and in the future. Also, if you haven't, please check out part 1 of this video as well as part 0 so you can be updated on the story and have everything beforehand as we get into today's part 2. Where we last left off, Team 7 had a successful mission in the sand. Not only were they able to save Gaara and the One-Tails from being taken by the Akatsuki, but also thanks to the overwhelming power of the mystic arts learnt by Team 7 with Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, along with an even powerful Haku by their side, they were able to take down the Akatsuki duo of Deidara and Sasori, the two actually being killed in their encounters with Team 7. As a result, the Akatsuki are now down, more so than they were ever expecting. And at the end of part 1, we learned that Kakashi has now had some sort of a new alliance with Itachi Uchiha. What exactly is the making of this alliance that Kakashi has formed, and how will it play a role in the shinobi world itself? Also, how will Sasuke fare in his battle against Orochimaru, the two now meeting for the first time in over 2.5 years? For all this and more, let's get into it as we get into today's video. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. With the mission at Tenchi Bridge soon at hand, Kakashi needed to put a team together. Outside of himself and Sasuke, there were many to consider to take along. One that Kakashi felt comfortable with was an old comrade of his. His code name was Tenzo, although whenever he wasn't in the Anbu, he often went by many different aliases. The most recent was Yamato. Along with him, Kakashi also took the two best suited and highly recommended, with the 5-man team now set. Before leaving, Sasuke would spend some time with Hinata. The two of them had gotten closer to one another, following the events of the Sasuke retrieval mission 2.5 years ago. It was during that mission that Hinata was gravely wounded, and when Sasuke found out about this, visiting her in the hospital, it caused his perspective on things to change. He realized that his actions didn't just affect himself but others around him. And for Hinata, it was through this mission and other circumstances that she started to let her feelings change a bit. She had always had feelings for Naruto, but as time progressed, she realized that Naruto was falling in love with someone else. And rather than trying to hold herself to her childhood crush, she instead opened herself to new possibilities. And of all of them, she found herself in the crossfires of Sasuke Uchiha. The two of them were low-key about things. No one forced anything unnecessarily on one another, but they enjoyed spending time together alone, and everyone was taking notice of it after a while. Before long, Sasuke prepared to leave for the mission. As he said goodbye to Hinata, he would pack his things and get his Anbu gear and ready. It would be early in the morning, 5 days before the meeting at Tenchi Bridge. Sasuke, Kakashi, the one known as Tenzo, along with 2 other Anbu, would make a 5-man team that would rendezvous to either capture the spy of Orochimaru, or if worse, take him or Orochimaru down in the process. As they made their way, they would go about planning their strategy for the mission. Kakashi, having fought against Sasori, knew his mannerisms and his look well. With help of Tenzo and his wood release, they would create a decent disguise, much better than the original. And Kakashi would man it. Hopefully they could get him to give them any information that they needed. But as they continued forward, Sasuke felt a bit uneasy. Not towards Kakashi or even Tenzo, but the 2 others that they were working with. There was something about them, something that Sasuke couldn't fully shake off. One in particular, with dark hair, who even from behind his mask, Sasuke could tell that his eyes were following him at all times. Nevertheless, the day would finally come at hand. With the preparations all set, Kakashi, disguised as Sasori in the Hiriko shell, would move forward to the Tenchi Bridge, as his 4 other comrades lied in wait behind him in the forest. Kakashi waited for some time, but eventually, the spy would reveal himself, shocking Kakashi and Sasuke especially, to learn that the spy was none other than Kabuto Yakushi, a pupil of Orochimaru. It was more than what any of them could have expected. To think that Kabuto would have been spying against Orochimaru, they wondered what could have led to this sort of outcome. But nevertheless, there was no time to ponder it. Kakashi's disguise worked well. Even Kabuto believed that he was really speaking to Sasori at this point in time, and all seemed to be going according to plan. That was until suddenly, Kabuto's demeanor would change, and from out of nowhere he would attack Sasori. With the disguise now destroyed, Kakashi would reveal himself. Kabuto, surprised by the impersonation, although intrigued, he revealed that he had actually been a double agent this entire time. While Sasori thought that he was spying on Orochimaru for his behalf, he was actually doing the opposite, keeping Lord Orochimaru informed of the Akatsuki through him. As such, Orochimaru would make his presence known. In doing so, he would also call out the other 4 presences hiding in the forest. And with no choice, the 4 other Anbu would stand behind Kakashi. Even under their mask, Orochimaru's face would light up in a smile, as he knew from underneath one of those masks was someone he had not seen in a while, and it was none other than Sasuke Uchiha. Orochimaru singled out Sasuke very quickly, remarking that it had been some time since the 2 of them had seen one another, although he could sense that something was different about the boy. He couldn't feel his presence upon him. During Sasuke's training with Loki, Loki used his magic to remove Orochimaru's curse mark, thus removing his influence. Sasuke, now standing at the ready, was more than prepared to face off against Orochimaru. In Sasuke's mind, Orochimaru served as the ultimate blockage, mainly because he had almost fallen to him. Sasuke had gotten so strong, but he wondered if he would have under Orochimaru. Ultimately, Orochimaru only wanted him for his body and the Sharingan. So realistically, there was only so much that Orochimaru was going to teach him. If he had been so foolish to give in to the Snake Sannin, he never would have achieved the level of power he had now. He was entrusted with this power by Loki, his master, and he had the faith and the backing of his comrades and his village. For him, this served as the ultimate test, and he could not fail now. As Kakashi, Tenzo, and Sasuke stood at the ready, they prepared to engage, when their two other Anbu comrades behind them suddenly leaped back. One, the boy that Sasuke was weary of, with dark hair, summoned a large scroll to his side. He would write in it, and instantly two large ink-like tigers would appear, jumping from out of the scroll and launching an attack. Sasuke instantly countered with a lightning clone, as the clone went to fight against the ink tigers, while the second, Anbu, revealed himself to be a member of the Aburame clan, as he led off his horde of insects to attack them. Tenzo would create a defensive wall of wood, as Kakashi stood at the ready also. Orochimaru, surprised by these new developments, but he quickly understood what was happening. Sasuke turned his attention back to Orochimaru, Kakashi warning Sasuke not to go through it alone. However, Sasuke looked back to his master, telling him not to worry, and that he was ready for this moment. Before Kakashi could do anything, Sasuke blitzed past them, even past Kabuto. The only one stopping him in time was Orochimaru, as the two of them started to trade blows as they continued their fight into the forest. Leaving Kabuto behind, Kabuto decided to help the new members, as he and the two other Anbu now stood against both Kakashi and Tenzo. As Kakashi's Sharingan glared and Tenzo prepared his wood release, the two former members of the Root organization now standing together against their newfound enemies. In the meantime, Sasuke and Orochimaru would dash throughout the forest, moving like unnatural blurs of light, being indistinguishable to the naked eye. Sasuke used the lightning style, Overdrive Level 3, as crackles of lightning chakra covered his body, increasing his strength, speed, and perception. His three Tomoe Sharingan glaring ominously towards the Snake Sannin. Sasuke, with a few slashes of his sword, had almost managed to take Orochimaru's head off. The Sannin now having to be careful going up against the young Uchiha, realizing that the boy had improved a lot since their last encounter, as he opened his mouth and summoned the Kusanagi sword from his mouth. He would then engage with Sasuke once more, as their blades locked with one another. Meanwhile, Kakashi and Tenzo would have their hands full, dealing with Kabuto and the two Anbu they were battling. One using something known as the Super Beast Scroll, using his various ink creations and drawings, allowing them to come to life and attack. Various monstrous animals and beasts all the same. While the Aburame would use what both Kakashi and Tenzo deduced were poisonous insects, and that they needed to be wary of at all times. Kakashi's Sharingan working on overtime to make sure that the insects didn't get too close to either of them, while also being cautious of Kabuto, who was matching Kakashi in strength all in all. The two having to work together, standing back to back against the three, defend them off. Kakashi tried to get answers from out of the two now treacherous Anbu. He knew fully well that something like this could only happen if Danzo Shimura allowed it, and being the member of the Root, this was something well within his capabilities. Nevertheless, Kakashi decided to make quick work of the battle. As he approached the dark-haired boy with the scroll, he was easily able to outclass him and subdue him. After pinning him to the tree with a kunai to his throat, the boy asked to be killed. However, Kakashi refused to do so, noting that even if they fought on different sides, they were both still Konoha shinobi, and he would not strike down a fellow comrade unnecessarily. With that, Kakashi would deliver a devastating blow to the gut, knocking the young boy out, before helping to deal with the Aburame Anbu. Once they were both taken down, Kabuto seemingly disappeared, not wanting to be caught in a 2-on-1 battle, but he had not gone too far away from the battlefield itself. As he watched from a distance, everyone's focus turning to the battle between Orochimaru and Sasuke. They continued their fight as it intensified, battling all throughout the forest, moving faster than even Kakashi's Sharingan was barely able to keep up. It seemed as though they were becoming absolute monsters. As Orochimaru gauged Sasuke and his abilities, he started to become more and more unnerved, mainly because not all of Sasuke's abilities were ninjutsu based, but quite the opposite. His attacks were something different. It reminded him of that boy, the boy from the Chunin exams, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto, and those strange abilities that he was able to use. Sasuke now manifested them himself. As they continued to fight, blood would be shed on both sides. Not just Sasuke's, but Orochimaru's as well. As they continued to fight, Sasuke would launch a fireball, one of great size, towards Orochimaru when he had jumped into the air. However, Orochimaru was easily able to dodge as the large fireball went flying into the sky above, seemingly missing him. As they continued onward, their swords connecting, the two of them displaying their various forms of ninjutsu. However, as the fight continued, Orochimaru gained the upper hand, and in doing so, his confidence continued to grow more and more, before eventually Sasuke staggered and Orochimaru took the advantage. Stretching his body like a snake and wrapping it around him, he went in instantly for the attack, preparing to bite down on his neck and give him another curse mark. However, he stopped himself at the last moment, as it seemed as though everything around him started to morph and change, and he realized that the Sasuke he was about to bite into was actually a log covered in paper bombs. He moved away instantly, seeing that he had been trapped in a genjutsu that seemingly broke, noting that it could have been worse if he hadn't stopped at the last moment. However, as he moved into the open field, he realized the dirt under his feet started to morph once again. Transforming like they had been a mirage, he realized he was standing on a bed of paper bombs. With no hesitation, they all blew up at once. As Orochimaru tried to escape, the lower half of his body was destroyed, forcing him to regrow a new body at once. Orochimaru was now more unnerved. It had been an illusion, but it wasn't genjutsu. Sasuke had become superb at merging his genjutsu art with his illusion magic. Truly a deadly combination. especially since magic was not easily detectable for shinobi. Unlike genjutsu that could be dispelled, dispelling illusion magic was much different, and seeing as how there were only a few people in this world who were practitioners in magic to begin with, it left Orochimaru ultimately at a disadvantage, realizing he had been lured into a false sense of security before Sasuke had sprung his true trap, damaging him in the process. The attack gravely wounded Orochimaru, who now had to take Sasuke even more seriously, as Sasuke charged at him. The Sannin would open his mouth, summoning thousands upon thousands of snakes, all moving directly towards Sasuke. Sasuke would use his sword and slice through as many of the snakes as he could, although he would be bitten a few times in the process. As he continued moving, he focused his chakra and created a great ball of fire that morphed into a dragon, the fire-style fire dragon jutsu. As the large, infernal beast went lunging towards Orochimaru, the snake Sannin would use the summoning jutsu to summon the Rashomon wall to block the attack. In doing so, a large crater would be created from the explosion, the snakes being burnt away and the smoke puffing into the sky above. As it began to settle below and the ground stopped shaking, Sasuke stood in the center of the crater, looking for Orochimaru. He had no sign of him until out of nowhere Sasuke was bitten by 4 large snakes in both his arms and his legs, causing him to fall to the ground paralyzed as Orochimaru laughed, remarking that while the boy was clever and was full of tricks, Orochimaru had some of his own, and those snakes were paralyzing, and he wasn't going to move anytime soon. Orochimaru carefully approached him from behind, making sure not to make eye contact. As the boy lay motionless, Orochimaru grabbed him by the head. As he was preparing to take Sasuke away, now ready to collect his prize. Instantly, Sasuke would burst into strings and surge of lightning, shocking Orochimaru as he staggered back. When out of nowhere a seal had been placed on the ground, it glowed blue, as now tendrils of blue magic bands enveloped and held Orochimaru in place, keeping him firmly stuck in the center of the crater. As the smoke cleared and he looked, the sky had now grown dark, and lightning and thunder bellowed from the sky above. As Sasuke stood at the top of the crater, Orochimaru looking up towards him, Sasuke remarked that Orochimaru would pay, thinking that he could just go after the younger Uchiha, who he deemed as weaker and more inexperienced. That was his fatal flaw, his ultimate mistake, and it would be his last. As Orochimaru looked up at the silhouette of Sasuke, as the lightning began to crash, and the flash of light for a brief moment, he didn't see Sasuke Uchiha, but he saw Itachi. Remembering that same presence of fear, that same helplessness that he felt all those years ago when he tried to take the Sharingan of Itachi Uchiha, only to fail, Sasuke remarked that now he would be his judgment and his execution. As he lifted his hand into the sky, a surge of lightning chakra, as well as his magical energies, morphing together into one, to form a jutsu of judgment that he called the Kirin. As he clasped his hand down, from the sky above, a lightning dragon would come hurling down, obliterating the crater and everything inside. Orochimaru's wicked screams were quickly silenced as the flash enveloped him, destroying him and leaving nothing to remain. As both Kakashi and Tenzo looked on, both in absolute shock of what they had seen, not thinking that Sasuke Uchiha would have this type of power, they could not deny that Orochimaru was gone. There was no way he could have remained. There couldn't have been anything left. As they made their way towards Sasuke, who now collapsed, tired from chakra exhaustion, Kakashi would hold him up with pride, telling him that he had done a great job. And for Sasuke, he felt as though now he had redeemed himself for his past sins. All seemed well for the group, Sasuke wondering what happened to the other two Anbu that they had been fighting, and Kabuto as well. However, before they had a chance to answer those questions, at least 20 Anbu or so would surround them. As Kakashi, Tenzo, and Sasuke looked on, it didn't take Kakashi and Danzo long to come face to face with one another, as the leader stood before them. Danzo would greet Kakashi, as well as Sasuke and Tenzo, remarking that it had been a while, but now it was time to tie up loose ends. Kakashi's Sharingan would glare, and Sasuke could see the worried look on his master's face as he asked who Danzo was and what business he had with them. Danzo, however, would reach for the bandages covering his right eye. As he lifted them, all three of them would look on in shock to see that in his right eye, there glowing back towards them, was the Sharingan itself. Sasuke had many questions, and so did Kakashi. Where did he get that Sharingan from? How was he able to get a hold of one? They had no idea what was happening. But right now they knew they had bigger issues to deal with, as they knew they were about to be in for the fight of their lives. However, before Danzo could give the order to attack from out of nowhere, a flock of crows would swirl around Kakashi, Tenzo, and Sasuke, obscuring their vision completely. A few members of the Anbu would launch an attack. However, as they did so and the crows dispersed, the three would be gone, Danzo sending his men to track them immediately, as he knew this was the work of one particular Uchiha. In the midst of everything that happened, Sasuke would awaken 3 days later. He was still a bit exhausted, recovering from his fight with Orochimaru. It took everything out of him to use the Kirin, and it almost wiped him out to complete zero. As he awoke, he found himself in a dark, dimly lit room with no windows. Kakashi sitting next to his bed reading from a book. As Sasuke awoke, he closed it, greeting his student, happy to see that he had finally awoken after 3 days' time. As Sasuke stood though, he realized that he was restrained by rope and other seals on his body. He looked at Kakashi confused, asking him what was going on, and why was he tied up like this. Kakashi took a deep breath, and he told Sasuke a lot had happened, and a lot more was going to happen, but that he needed him to stay calm and to not lose control. As he said this, the door would open. Tenzo would walk inside first, and walking in behind him was none other than Itachi Uchiha. As Sasuke's eyes widened in shock, Itachi would look back to Sasuke. Hello, little brother. It's been a while, but we have much to discuss. This concludes What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange? Naruto Mystic Adventures Shippuden Part 2. If you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we are going to be continuing What If Ben 10 was in the MCU? What If Ben 10 was in Avengers Infinity War? But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.